So then we are back with more understanding from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end per Yeshayahu the prophet, and also from the Holy Quran. Then we must establish the time of the end during this period of restoration, where then we find the freighters of the earth very shortly taken over. It's very important then for us to explore and understand why then the freighters are taken over. There are many factors, but primarily because the Creator himself is very industrious. The Creator is not a politician. He is an industrialist. If we study very cautiously, when the creation was then established, he was industrious for 6 days, and then he rested on the 7th day. He was not a politician. He was not coming up with strange orders. So then let's understand why during this time of restoration we find no politics mixed with it. Yeshayahu the prophet, we find in the 61st chapter, an area where then the Messiah completed his spring feast. There are no gospels. Gospel is a foreign word. It does not even belong with the holy manuscripts. Gospels do not exist. What does exist is the spring feast. So then during the time of the spring feast, we find then the Messiah explaining many completions of the holy instructions. So then, during this time, where we are then restoration, we find then the Messiah emphasizing the industry of the Creator. How did he do? He simply completed the spring feast. If you observe, the Messiah was very industrious every time he was completing the spring feast. Why? Because it was related with a harvest, related with the feasts, related with preparation, related with the gathering of harvest and planting. So then when we begin our quest understanding the Holy Mikras, the Messiah was then involved with a holy feast for 490 days. That's more than a year. So then we find ourselves understanding planting and harvesting, and the whole works that takes place in a span of a year, where then the nation had done for more than 1,000 years. The Messiah during this time, he was very industrious. So then we find ourselves during the time of the period of the dragon. Devil no longer exists. We must update our data and understand we are during the time of the dragon. After 09 has shifted from deceit to dragon. As such, then we find knowledge increasing every time. But the point at the moment is not the knowledge. From tabernacling, we understand that the knowledge was then given its peak when it was then 08, 09. There was then enough knowledge during the 08 and 09 to make the plan of the restoration then completed. So we find in Daniel the prophet and Daniel the politician explaining the time of restoration. We find then the area related with and knowledge would increase. By the time the deceit would end, the starting of the period of the dragon would be then with the increasing of knowledge. So what we experienced in 08, 09 was already enough knowledge during the time, roughly 40 years ago, enough for the entire period of the restoration. So then, with these in mind, we must understand also the Messiah explaining the dual layer of tabernacling and also of the Gentile level. Then we find the freighters of the earth. So this is the main topic of the conversation. Freighters of the earth in charge. Governments are no longer required. Let's understand why. When tabernacling was around during the time of the first tabernacle service, you find then a period of time where the people of Israel, the sons of Yitzhak, sometimes they were so loyal during the time of the restoration of the tabernacle. People, they would pay their dues without having anybody bothering them. They would do the service, they would work in the tabernacle, and there was then boxes over there where each person would pay their dues without anybody bothering. So this is what the Creator is expecting. You don't have to have a person with a whip on your back making sure you are paying your taxes, because we are during the time of the restoration of tabernacling. And fortunately, the Gentiles were included. How are they included? When we find then Yeshayahu explaining in the 61st chapter, even the heathen, those people not from the lineage, would be amazed and would work on behalf of tabernacling. We are not talking about only Gentiles doing the service area work for tabernacling. No, they became part of tabernacling. As in a level of Gentiles, they became part of it. Even the Gentiles would become then with awe before the holy plan. So from far away they became part of the instructions, but not in the same level as the Israelic people, obviously. But they were included in an overview of the entire plan. So then, we find ourselves during this time where then the world, or the world's trade, is mostly outdated. If we do a study of freighting or sea freighting, it was an American that invented the system of container ships, standardized size container ships. Those are from the 50s. So then those technologies, they are outdated far beyond we can ever imagine. So for us then to embark ourselves during this time of the restoration, projecting of what's coming in the future, projecting what's coming as far as the Chinese system is concerned, understanding that this system is coming, and the volume, the main word is volume. So let's understand what volume means. When the system becomes available and the U.S. monetary system then breaks, then shortly next 36 months, the system then is going to be from nation to nation, nation and nation, becoming then neutral. Any person then can invest in the system. These availability of a system and people investing and buying, purchasing, making transactions via the system is going to generate volume, because it's not only the BRICS countries involved, then it's the entire planet, not only then as far as country and realms, but then individuals. You can imagine the number of people doing trade. It is absolutely very big. We can't count at the moment, but we can at least understand, since the Messiah is far away in the future, because the understanding is very unique. When you speak of tabernacling, you are speaking from what was in the past, and you project your understanding in the future. So you find your mind sometimes, this line of future and past, as we have this understanding of, comes from the right, then the lowest number, and then as you move to the left, becomes the greater number, so then you can understand timing. In Hebrew, it doesn't work this way. This line, it's not a line. It's a circle. Believe it or not, you measure your understanding of prophetic time and season and the prophetic understanding as a circle. It is a bit unique, but I have to get used to it. So when you are thinking of a prophecy of the past, you are thinking of future. The mind doesn't understand. If you are in the past, it's past. How can it be future? But then, from tabernacling viewpoint, time is not related. However, we must understand our time because we are not in tabernacling level, but we are speaking of tabernacling. But we are in the earth. However, when we are thinking of prophecy, you have to understand as a circle. Where then you understand there is a section of it that's not truly past, but it's truly the future. It's a completion of. So the Messiah from the past is explaining of the future and the freighters of the earth. He's explaining at the very end, at the very moment where the Messiah then is giving a last warning for his set apart people. Make sure they bunch up and form holy cities. Because the Messiah is explaining, autumn feast is very near. So then the Messiah is in a very position of explaining and showing us what's coming in the future. And the freighters of the earth. We understand by this time, no longer kingdoms, no longer politicians, no longer scoundrels and liars and cheats, no more lazy people. We find freighters of the earth. Those are related with a system, a very organized system, and people being responsible. That's why governments are no longer required. Absolutely no longer required, because people are going to be responsible for their own systems. You can understand yourself as being an investor, a banker, at the same time. And you can order your own. So then you can imagine then, translating these is then volume. We understand volume. Volume is going to be extreme. From the viewpoint of the Messiah, since he is in the very future, then we retract from the future of the Messiah, and then we have to understand steps of formation. What do we understand of the ships at sea? They are using a technology for the most part from the 50s. It must be updated. Otherwise, they won't be able to handle the volume. The volume is extreme. Try to understand. There is an exchange of retailing or retailers versus individuals. Let's understand. When the retailers did order, they ordered in great quantities, making it simpler, because then we place the orders of a retailer, for instance, in a half of a ship. Make it simple. The other retailer orders the other half of the ship. Simple. However, when you begin to work with individuals to make up for the retailers, then the volume must be extreme. Because you are not going to over there in the next corner, you get your necklace, or then your pair of pants, or then your pair of shoes. You have to get online, because as you order from the system, your investments of the last month are already coming in. So you are already earning your money. And then you order at the same time. So imagine then the Chinese system as a big eBay system worldwide, where also you include investment. You find a product over there, you understand there are many countries coming out of poverty. So then you understand, for instance, electrical wiring is the utmost important in a home. You find then a company with a product that is nice quality and you think is a great potential for many countries to buy this product. You invest on the product. But have this in mind. You don't get a big return for it. You get a tiny return. But you're not going to invest only in wires. You're going to invest in another 900,000 other items related with construction. Then at the end of the month, they calculate and they give you what is then due you. However, volume because of the number of people to make up for the retailers out of work, is going to be, in quote, astronomical. If we don't update our ports, the sea lane, and how the ships handle cargo, they won't be able then of having the demand then delivered. Ports are already working at their utmost, and then some of those places are so congested with freighters everywhere. And sometimes some of those larger ships, then to unload the 2,200 containers of the 50s takes more than 20 hours. Now let's imagine this. The retailers out of work and then individuals buying via the system. Can you imagine the volume generated because of these parcels? The ports, they won't be able to handle it. The crane operators are going to be working 24/7 shifts, and they won't be able to get the work done. As they finish a ship, another 5 are docking, or they are anchoring over there near the shore and waiting. How long is it going to take to get this cargo out of my ship? And it's not going to be very nice in the future, because the anger of the citizens are going to be turned against their governments. Every junk the governments they have done, their lying, their cheating is going to get back on their faces. People are not going to be very merciful in the near future. This is going to be translated in every section of trade. People are going to hate governments. So let's then understand what this is going. Are we saying anarchy? No. We are not talking of anarchy. We are talking about then people being angry because governments did not prepare their countries as they should have. And they lied, they cheat, they abused, and they are going to get back on their faces. So then, when you find a country not prepared for the coming of those ships, people are going to be real angry. They want their parcels delivered to their homes as promised. And they have a deal with freighters. In a certain time, this package must be at this person's home. Then the ports overwhelmingly working 24/7. And then the government is going, because the volume is so big. You know what the people are going to say in their faces? I don't give a damn for you and what you think. I want my package. And they are going to work under a huge amount of tension. And then the government, if they don't tax those particular parcels, they won't be able to have payment available for their workers. And the people won't give a damn. So the level of anger towards the government is going to be extreme. So let's understand where it's going, because then we can prepare ourselves and minimize this anger. When the ports are not updated, you find an crane operators working day and night, 24/7. As a ship gets ready, a couple more ships are already over there, far away, drop down the anchor. They are waiting for it. Then comes via the radio. It's going to take another couple days to get you at the dock. Do you have an understanding what's going to be of then the freighters? CEO over there, I don't give a damn if it's going to take 24 hours. I want my ship out of there in a couple of hours. Thus the level of anger rising. Governments won't be able to pay their people. You know what's going to take place? Politicians are going to be out of there real fast. So in order to avoid this level of anger, because the people, they won't care. You can be sure of it. They are not going to be understanding. Politicians are going to try to come around and talking junk. They're going to get a real nice rotten tomato in their faces. Because as they are rotten, that's what they get. So let's understand the importance of updating the ports. First then, the situation is related with the standard size containers. Those must be then put together as modules. And then obviously you have to have a port with a drive-through. It can't be any more ships coming to the harbor. Sometimes they have to drop the anchor, waiting for a pilot, then boards the ship, and then making maneuvers, crazy maneuvers, and hours wasted. Oh no. He goes straight through, shuts down the engine, and then the inertia, or then the very motion of the ship with the engines not on, must match when it stops at the harbor. Minimum waste of time. Then refueling during a couple of hours must be then refueled. Ships then are unloaded, loaded, and then on their way. Otherwise, they won't be able to maintain the demand. And the people are not going to be very nice. Because the governments, they are abused. They are so abusive for so long. And then when people, they have the right of earning, the right of purchasing, the right of investing without the middleman, they are going to get a hold of their money. They are going to watch their investments always going up. You know why? Because the main deals are going through the Soviet Union. When we begin our understanding as far as this new technology, let's try to understand the kingdom of the north per Daniel's description. Where do we find? Daniel the 11th chapter speaks of the relationship of the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. Very strong relationship. Then we find, obviously, China is not part of it. Not from the 11th chapter, but if you read then a couple chapters later, then you find, couple chapters later, then you find the dragon over there. But the dragon is protected far away. How do we understand this? Then you understand the flow of new technologies going through the kingdom of the north. Then you understand why then the kingdom of the north has so much equipment. So then those areas where the new technologies they come in, they're going to be filtered through. China won't have any more time to have politicians, the very people not part of the freighters. They won't have any more time to have these junky politicians who do not even know how to put up a fence in their backyard. Lazy politicians, they only come up over there in some sort of a parliament. They stand up, speak a bit, sit down, then stand up, speak a bit, sit down. There is no more time for this junk. Tabernacling is at hand. People are going to understand what it means of being responsible. Then, because of the volume, even the topography of China must also change because they have to build up more factories. They understand the basics of those countries coming out of poverty. If they were having 5 factories of cement, they're going to have to do it 10. Because people are going to be ordering cement, or then sand, or then a mixture. Then you find electric wires. Then you find piping, PVC piping. And you find glue for PVC piping. And you have to have brackets for the piping. And you have to have nails or screws for those brackets. And then electric boxes. And then breakers. But not in the volume that we are expecting these days. It's more than quadruple. So do you think after so much demand, China is going to have time of wasting with politicians when they are not part of the freighters? They are not even part of it. So let's understand what Daniel the politician is explaining, because he's explaining an area of industry. What is he explaining in the 11th chapter? The relationship of the kingdom of the north. Then there is a reference of military equipment and much equipment. Much equipment, you have to have a bit of equipment. If he is explaining equipment, it's because they are producing equipment. But then you have to understand the bulk, what it takes to get the minerals out of the ground. China won't be able to handle the entire works of a huge world factory. They have to have a right-hand person to get the equipment required to get raw materials from the ground, transportation, even his smelting, and then only having the final product of a raw material already smeltered, already lined up in chips and delivered to China to do the work. So when you read then much equipment, you understand not only military equipment, but then equipment. Then you understand what it takes to get the factory of the world going. Then we understand the kingdom of the south, always providing raw materials. So then we begin to understand the flow. Politicians, they are no longer part of it. During this stage of the prophecy of Daniel, politicians, they are non-existent. Because we've entered the area of people being responsible, as it was during the time of the first tabernacle service, where people, they were refurbishing the tabernacling, and they were paying their dues. There was there a tax box. People, every person over there, they were faithful, and they were paying what is required to get tabernacling going. You don't find politicians during the time. You find the Creator tabernacling, people being responsible. So let's understand and make it very clear. People are going to be very angry with governments. And if the governments are not preparing the country, double anger. Because what's coming as far as government is concerned, it's not very nice. And governments won't be able to go down on the ground as reptiles, trying to hide behind their titles and having a printing machine to print out more money. It's not going to work. Because the very new system coming then is against the politicians. Politicians are a scourge of the planet. And these people were concocted because of the lacking of paying taxes. That's why then when tabernacling returns, we understand tabernacling being refurbished and people being faithful, people being truthful. Each person paying their dues. But their dues are going to be paid by the system itself. If the governments, they don't have a system lined up with the freighters in every parcel, every time there is a label printed, taxes must be deducted instantly. If it doesn't get done, the government's out of luck. There is no way later for them to start a tracking system. Because the anger of the people is going to be so great, not even the name of government won't be near those freighters. And it's not going to be nice. So if the government are screwing around up to this day, they are not leaning up as they should have. They are not taking seriously the factor of what the Messiah has said. They are not lined up parcels and taxation. They don't understand that the retailers are going out of work. And they are enjoying each other's incompetence. Those scoundrels are out of work. I don't care if it's the president, vice president, or the previous president or former president in the whole damn system that they learned. The whole gang is out of work. What we understand are freighters coming and people very angry. Extremely angry. If the government does not get the work done for the next 36 months, every time there is a label printed, must have description, pricing, and deduction of taxes. If it doesn't get done, later won't get done. Then the freighters of the earth have to line up with the Chinese system and making a system of the entire nation's economical system based upon the Chinese system. A subsystem can only survive when there is an absolute reality check as far as what the expenses are, the backlogs get lined up with the profits, making sure always in the positive. Then a subsystem can survive. Without the surviving of the subsystem, any other system then becomes non-existent. It's kind of obvious. And the people are not going to be nice. The media is going to be murderous. In quote the word murderous. Any tiny failure of government is going to be exposed to its utmost raw information, and people are going to get angry. And as the government don't have enough revenue to pay police, they don't have any more revenue to pay the military, they're going to be in a very big trouble. And people are aware of where the Ozark is at. People understand there is a building over there. The problem is the government is not going to hide underground. So either let's do the work properly or let's do the work properly. Isn't that profound?